Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior Design Evangelist here at Adobe. Hope you're all doing well on this Thursday, I think it is, morning, afternoon, or evening. If you are tuning in live here on Behance, let me know in the chat who you are and where you're tuning in from. We've got Wade and Alessandra and Oliver and PJ. Great to see all of you. If you're tuning in on YouTube, hello as well. I will be looking at the Behance chat, so you can head over to behance.com/Adobe Live to hang out and chat, ask some questions. We're gonna have some fun in Adobe Express today. We're gonna be building out some YouTube thumbnails and some Instagram Reels. We're gonna be testing out some of the new features that just dropped yesterday. The Adobe Express, the new beta, came out of beta yesterday. So we're gonna be diving in and looking at that. We've got Colby, great to see you as well. All right, so we have about half an hour today, maybe about 25 minutes, so we're gonna get through as much as we can. Let me go ahead, hop over my screen. If you do have questions about Adobe Express, definitely throw them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer some of them, and we probably also have some folks from Adobe as well in the chat paying attention. All right, so yeah, Wade just posted the link to Adobe Express. You can also go to new.express.adobe.com. I believe just Adobe express.adobe.com now redirects there as well, now that we are out of beta. So first of all, what is Adobe Express? If you have not heard of it, it's a great service on the web. We also have a mobile app. Now, the mobile app is not updated for the new experience yet. That is in beta still, so we are testing it, but hopefully soon. But Adobe Express allows you to really create some amazing social graphics, and you can edit videos and photos all on the web. It's super simple to use. So if you don't have Photoshop, or you don't have experience with Photoshop or Illustrator, Express definitely is a good option for you. Hey, Monica as well, and Carol, great to see all of you. So if you haven't used Adobe Express yet, we're gonna dive into some experiences today, specifically around social media, creating YouTube thumbnails. I get that question a lot because I upload to YouTube a lot, and a lot of people want to know, how do I create YouTube thumbnails? So if you take a look, let me actually hop over here. You may have seen this before the stream. I think Andrew Hockrattle put together this thumbnail, and I kind of want to, it'd be interesting to replicate this thumbnail using Adobe Express. I'm not sure what he built this with, probably Illustrator, but I do, hey Andrew, good to see you. I do want to start off by trying to replicate this specific thumbnail. So let's go ahead and hop over to the social media section within Adobe Express, and we can start off with some popular templates over here. You can also, any of them, you can start from scratch, or you can browse templates as well. So if we go over to, let's say, YouTube, and we've got YouTube video, we've got YouTube thumbnails, shorts, YouTube banners, all sorts of different options. Let's start off with a YouTube thumbnail, and just to see some of the templates, we are going to browse templates. And right away on the left-hand side, we have a ton of different templates to start with, right? So if you have something specific in mind, or you don't have something specific in mind, you can just start with a template. And all of these are completely editable, which is incredible. But we want to kind of try to replicate that thumbnail that you saw a little bit earlier. And just one more time, here's the template, right? So it starts off with kind of a background. It's a very simple background, right? But we might want to spruce it up just a little bit. And if I go ahead and hop over to our media section, we've got Adobe stock images, photos, videos, and audio as well. We can also generate text to image, which I'm going to show you in just a little bit. But if you have something specific in mind, let's say a synthwave grid, for example, right? You can enter that in here. And many of these images are free. Some of them are premium, which is indicated by the crown, right? And if I go back for a second, you can see some featured free, and many of these images don't have the crown. So you can definitely, use those in your projects. But let me go back and search that. And let's start. We want to keep it simple, but also kind of fun, right? I mean, this one's kind of interesting. It has this cursor in the background, which is kind of similar, kind of works for, this design. Or we can go ahead and do something like, I mean, this one's a little bit out there, right? But it could work. We're going to see how that goes. All right. And then I think what Andrew had in the background, now this grid kind of played into a lot of this, but he had some text and some, a header up here, text. Let me actually go ahead and take a screenshot of this. Or you know what I can do? I can just drag it, boop, directly in here, just so I can have it down here so you can see what we're working with. So up here we have this pro tips text. So I'm gonna go ahead and choose my text. And when I do that, I can start off with a template as well. So I can, if there's something that's kind of interesting looking, like this one here, kind of fits with this overall theme, but I can go ahead and just press add your text. And we'll just do, whoops, helps if I spell properly, pro tips, just like that. And I'll change the color to white. Now in this particular case, because of the background, there's a lot going on back there, it's a little bit difficult to see this text, right? So we're gonna probably want some sort of container around it. So what we can do, we can start off by changing the font if we want. We have some recommendations at the top, some nice, bold text, or we can go ahead and hop into the font picker and we can see some of our uploaded fonts. We can also see our fonts that we've synced from Adobe Fonts as well. This one's kind of fun, but it's a little bit too wide for this particular case. So let's go ahead. I'm going to hop into my uploaded fonts where I do have one of the fonts that we use internally. So we have maybe semi-condensed. That one's not too bad. Looks like Andrew's probably using a condensed version. Something like this, potentially. Bold condensed italic. Possibly. It looks a little bit thicker, but we're going to run with this for now. I might want to decrease the size a little bit. I can also just pull this down. But again, we want that container behind this text. So I'm going to hop into, down at the bottom, we have text effects, shadow, shape, and animation. So I'm going to go ahead and choose shape, and that's going to allow me to add a shape around this particular text, right? And now Andrew did, I'm assuming it's Andrew. I don't know if it actually is Andrew who designed this thumbnail, but we're going to run with it. I'm going to choose a custom color here, and you might notice it's, recommended some colors, but I want something a little bit darker, somewhere in this range here. Now it's a little bit too close to the text right now, so I'm just going to increase the shape size, and all of a sudden we have a nice shape around our text. And this really helps separate the text from the background so it's a little bit more, or a lot more legible, right? And PJ saying Kronos Pro. Yeah, we can also test out a few different typefaces. Do I have that one? There it is. Let's see, maybe this is the text. I don't know. Do we have a nice, we have bold. This probably isn't the text, but it's kind of nice, right? It's not bad. It could work. Maybe I'll save that for something else. All right, so we're gonna position that here. And now we have this area down here, right? In part of this thumbnail. Now what you might notice, it does have a shape around it, but it's pretty evenly spaced out in the center of this thumbnail. So we might not want it to wrap around the text as a shape. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hop into elements, and we have our basic shapes at the top. So you probably start off in your design assets, but if you can go to backgrounds, you can go to shapes, and we can choose a simple rectangle, drag that out. And I'll pop it somewhere out here, and it's probably not that large, maybe somewhere around here, right? I'll make sure to center it. Change the color to white. Right, so it makes it very simple to edit, in Express with these basic shapes and all sorts of goodness. And now we can add our text on top of this. Now this one, we don't need a shape around it. So I'm just gonna type out generative AI with Adobe Express, something like that. Now for this one, I'm probably going to want to left justify it. And we're gonna switch back to, I think this font is it's a nice font, but it's a little bit too stylistic, I think. So I'm gonna switch back to something like that. Make this a little bit smaller. If I can grab the handle, there we go. Now color-wise, I'm gonna choose something maybe in the bluish range, somewhere in here. Now it does look like it's probably a more condensed typeface that Andrew was using, but we're gonna run with this. It's a not terrible, right? We can also adjust the line spacing, make it a little bit squishier. So I don't think I have condensed, but I don't have like extra bold condensed. So bold condense isn't too bad. It's not bad, but I prefer that nice thicker text. Even though it doesn't line up exactly, we're going to run with it. All right, that'll do for now. And then, down below, we've got this image of a burger. And there's a lot of different places you can get images. Of course, Adobe Stock. You can also go to the media section and you can search for photos like burger. Oops, burner. That's not it. Burger. I can never spell during these streams. And you've got a lot of different photos of burgers. This one is free that you can use. Some of them are premium. But if you want something a little bit more unique, you can then generate one of your own. So we have this option right here at the top, text to image. And if I go ahead and press that, I can choose the image size. So we've got square, landscape, portrait, and widescreen. I think for this one, we might let's try landscape to begin with. You might want to go widescreen, potentially. Might be a little bit too, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and switch that over to widescreen just so we can kind of fit it right down in this section here. Snap into place. Alessandra saying I can never spell. Yeah, especially when I'm live streaming and trying to talk and look at chat at the same time. Spelling is just not even in my mindset. All right, so up here we can start typing out. And you may have seen this example previously from me. There we go. I stopped talking. So I can type out something like burger and then choose photo because I know that's exactly what I want. Now what you're going to notice is if you actually, this might not even work because the prompt might be too short. But with a very short, simple prompt, you're gonna get things, yeah, prompt is too short, but it still worked. You're gonna get, decent results for burgers. But you may have a very specific style in mind, and that's where you can really start to expand upon your prompt. So we can do something like editorial style photo of a burger on a rustic wood table, right? Let's say in a tavern. And we'll start with that. So we're expanding upon it. We're starting to define where the burger is sitting. We're starting to define the lighting with the tavern prompt, in a tavern. And we're getting, decent results now. And some of them are still loading in, and that's going to be, we'll give it a second. But we're starting to kind of get in that direction. And that's not bad, right? And we can even expand on it more. You know what? We'll keep it at this. We'll run with it. And we also might want at the bottom a picture of me. I'm not a big fan of this picture down here, so I'm going to hop over to Finder. I do have another image we're going to use. We're going to pop that directly in there. Probably don't need this thumbnail anymore, but I'm going to bring it to the front. Just pop it over here for now. Make that a little bit smaller. There we go. We also have some options so we can crop it if we wanted to. So we can crop it to square, just like that. Perfect. Make it a little bit larger so it snaps. There we go. Now we also have the icon at the top, which you can easily add as well. But you might also notice we have some random rectangles or squares around this thumbnail. And that's where you can go back to your elements section and grab some rectangles or squares or circles or whatever you might want to add in there. And all these are completely editable. Now in this thumbnail that Andrew designed, they are yellow. So I could go ahead and choose a nice yellow color, but because we have this, different background, it may not work as we expect. So I think something like blue, this like neon blue could be interesting. I'll make it nice and small. Pop one about here. Maybe I'll duplicate. I'm holding down my Alt-Option key and dragging. Right? And then I can probably delete this now. And pop another one over here. And all of a sudden, we have made, it's not the nicest looking thumbnail in the world. It certainly is not as nice as Andrew's thumbnail, but we're starting to get there, right? I think the background is throwing it off a lot. So we can always, hop in here to select the background, choose replace background, and maybe we'll just try, let's say, blue grid. We'll see if we have anything that's a little bit more looking like Andrew's. You know, this one here isn't too bad. It's not bad, but it definitely looks a little bit more like what Andrew had. That's interesting. You know, I do like the synthwave background that we added. I just think that the elements on top of it don't work exactly as I would expect, right? So this I might change to more of a blue, honestly. So I'd go into shape and then change the fill. Yeah, I think blue probably looks a little bit better here. I think the text probably could use some changes. I'd probably maybe bump this up to black possibly, just so it stands out a little bit more. And then because we're not really using that grid in the background that Andrew had, we can probably offset a few things just to, you know, play around with, just kind of like that. Maybe move this over a little bit. I would probably change the color of this as well. That's interesting, right? So as you continue to build your thumbnails and your social assets, you're probably going to step back and look at it and be like, you know, some areas are not working that well. You know, this white shape in the background, I'd probably change that, maybe add a little bit of color to it or drop the opacity just a touch so some of the color from the background pops in. You don't want to drop it too much because then you're going to deal with some legibility issues, but just dropping it a little bit, maybe 90, could work, right? It's not bad. I don't love it, but you know, for a few minutes, it'll work, right? So from here, what you can do, you can share it, you can download it directly to your computer so you can use it on your YouTube videos or move on, right? So I'm definitely gonna go ahead and rename this thumbnail and we're good to go, right? It's fine. I'm gonna probably go back and edit some things that bother me a little bit later. But I do want to move on and go on to another example. So if we hop back over to our homepage, we also have options for things like Instagram stories. So let's go ahead and browse some templates for that. And what you might want to do for, let's say you have an Instagram reel, right? And you want to upload a preview of it to your Instagram story. So we have all these different templates here, and this one's kind of fun, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pop open that one. You know, it says new in the background, which is interesting, right? And if I go ahead and play this, you've got that fun animation in the background. But I might want to replace this here with a video that I created, you know, for my story or the actual reel that people were going to be clicking into. So I'm going to delete, you know, I'll keep this for now. And I'm gonna keep that just for a second. I'm gonna delete that in a moment. I'm gonna hop over to Finder, and over in Reels, I do have some. Here's a reel here that I uploaded. It's a minute long, right? So I certainly can't upload this whole thing to the Instagram story. So I'm gonna go ahead and drag this directly into Adobe Express. Let me zoom in a little bit. I'm gonna resize it. I can now delete this in the background. And we've got over on the right-hand side our layers that we can just very easily drag up and down. And you're gonna notice that it's now cut off perfectly, right? So we have 10 seconds. Of course, we can make this a little bit longer or smaller if we wanted to, but 10 seconds is great. I think 15 seconds is what you want for Instagram story. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave this right around here, make sure to center it. I can also align it right up here. So middle and center, perfect. And then new reel. Could probably delete that. And just like that, it's gonna work perfectly with the background behind my imported video, right? Maybe I'll make this a little bit longer. And if I go ahead and play that, you're gonna see that animation in the background, right? So I can go ahead and download this. I can download it as an MP4, upload it directly to Instagram. At the moment, I believe we don't support uploading directly to Instagram stories. So you'll have to download to your computer and then re-upload that as well. Now, one more thing I want to show, and this is kind of cool. I did upload this on Twitter or X or whatever you call it these days. The new Adobe Express has the ability to not just remove the background of your images, but it also has the ability to remove the background of your videos. So if I were to, for example, we're going to keep this background, right? And if I were to go to Finder for a second, and let's just drag in this photo of me for a moment, make this nice and large. Now, of course, what we've been able to do is select an image and then press remove background. And in a moment, it's going to do a decent job at cutting out me from the background, which is great. We've seen that everywhere, but it hasn't worked with videos. And this is kind of cool. So let me go ahead and hop over to, I have some intros here, and this is kind of the same one that you saw a moment ago from the reel. I'm going to drag this into the document. The video is loading. Where did it go? There it is. So I'm going to make this larger like that. And I might want to cut the background out of this video. Now it's not easy, right? Now, right now, when I added it in, the video's processing. So it might take, depending on how long the video is and how the file size is, how complex it is, it might take a few minutes for the video to process. But once it does process, you'll be able to use remove background just like you can with images. So while that's processing, we do have our background back there that looks great. So you can have a video on top of a video and you can remove the background. But let's go ahead and hop over to, let's say, text. And this text here is kind of fun. Let's just add some additional text here while we're waiting, right? So we can ungroup this if we wanted to. We have some different styles here. I might want to change the color. And maybe I'll change this to say shortcuts. Favorite shortcuts, right? You can't really see it, but we will run with it. Let's see how our video is doing. Okay, so the video has processed. So right over here, I'm gonna go ahead and press remove background. Now it's not gonna be instant because it's gotta go through, I don't know if it goes through frame by frame or what it's doing in the background. It's doing a lot of crazy things, but it's going through and it's removing. Now, keep in mind that the background behind me in that video is not a green screen, right? I've got a green screen behind me now, but there's not a green screen. So it's not a very simple process as just keying out a color. It's actually going through and rotoscoping. I don't know what it's doing, right? But now, I mean, it looks green now because the background was green. But if I go ahead and play this, it's done a pretty decent job at removing that background. And if I wanted to, I can always go through and, change the background to something different. So we've got this video here, remove background, but we can swap it out for something different. We've got some videos. Let's find maybe abstract, and we'll replace it with probably not grass. That doesn't make much sense. We've got this crazy thing. This one's interesting, right? I mean, just being able to do that is just blowing my mind that we can go through and remove the background of a complex video, right? My camera's moving a little bit. The background behind me isn't a solid color, and it did a pretty decent job. And even in that original video, there's a little bit of depth. So I'm not very sharp in many respects, right? So it's very interesting how it's able to do that. There we go, right? So all of a sudden we've created this Instagram story that we can now download to our computer and, upload to Instagram to promote the longer reel. So it really helps with, marketing and things like that. All right, so we have about 1 minute left. The last thing I'll show you in terms of Firefly integration in Adobe Express is, if I go back to the For You section, we now have text to image and text effects. So if you wanted some fun text effects for your Instagram stories or your thumbnails or whatever it might be, you can start off with a template. We have green cactus with pink flowers. Sure, why not, right? So I can enter in a prompt up here if I wanted to. And we've got some results down at the bottom, so we can change it up a little bit. We've got some sample effects, all sorts of different things. And I can just type out something like boop, and it's going to automatically re-render that text for me. I can go through and change to balloon, for example. There we go. We've got some fun text effects. And then like I showed you just a moment ago, we've got also text to image. Now we did use this when we were creating that burger at the beginning, but if you wanted something very specific, like a a specific background, or let's say a blue marble texture background, right? You'll be able to generate something like that to use it behind your photos or in your Instagram stories or whatever it might be. And then you've got a few different results that are going to generate in just a moment. Here we go, down at the bottom. And those look pretty fun. That one almost looks like ice, right? All right, so that's gonna wrap things up. Very short stream. We went through and created a YouTube thumbnail using all sorts of different effects in Adobe Express, including text to image. And then I showed you the remove background feature for videos, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. But stick around, we've got more content coming up in just a few moments. Big thank you to everyone who has tuned in live today, and I will see you all next time.